Palantir is showing a lot of weakness. I mean, this is the weakest stock I probably hold the past month. Palantir is down nearly 17 percentage points just in the past month. So what is going on with Palantir? What happened here? Like, why is, so many stocks showing so much strength, and you got stocks all over the place up 20%, 30%, 80%, 50%, 100% in the past month, and then there's Palantir down near the 17%. Okay, first things first. Palantir's performed tremendous for us. I mean, even after this weakness in the stock the past month, which is not a small weakness, 17 percentage points roughly is a lot. It's still up a ridiculous amount. It's still one of the best stocks in the entire stock market this year, right? But let's keep in mind, S&P 500, people are looking out and they're saying, where's this S&P 500 inclusion at? When are we getting in, right? So it's lost some momentum there. It's just completely lost all short-term momentum. I'll put it like that. That's the best way I could put it with Palantir. It's lost all short-term momentum, right? All excitement around kind of the business model. You had the Wall Street analysts De Palma, right, who put out the note around they might receive less from that government contract, which is, once again, it's kind of small money compared to what Palantir brings in overall, but still, it just puts a weakness out there. It just puts a, kind of like, just zaps like the momentum from that stock, right? Now, with that being said, Palantir could easily come back in terms of stock price. And it really has nothing to do with the market in general, right? Really what needs to happen is either they need to announce some sort of big deal that people didn't see coming, or they need to have like their next earnings needs to be really strong and showing an acceleration of growth rates, really strong guidance, something like that. If they come in with either of those situations, you'll see that stock start to come back to life very, very quickly. But for right now, it's lost its momentum on the Wall Street side. It lost some momentum on the retail side. And so it's just kind of floundering and just dropping right now, okay? And so it depends on if you have a long-term view. If you have a long-term view of Palantir, you're probably loving this and picking up shares. If you have a more of a short-term view, you're kind of like, this could persist maybe for the next month, unless we get some month, if not month and a half, unless we get some big announcement of a big deal here for Palantir overall. This gentleman put out this video yesterday. It's got a lot of views, 40,000 plus views on it. Palantir is doomed. I can't stay quiet on Palantir stock any longer. So want to watch this one, react to this one, kind of share my opinions and thoughts on this one overall, and that's all we're going to focus on in this one here today.
Thanks to artificial intelligence, new innovations are coming out faster than ever before, which means that Palantir's cutting-edge AI today could become a commodity by tomorrow. So in this episode, I'll show you why Palantir could be doomed as early as 2024, even if they technically still have the best AI platforms. Your time is valuable, so let's get right into it. Let me start by saying that this isn't a video about Palantir somehow being bad, and I'm not rooting for them to fail. I actually got to use Foundry for myself, and I was blown away by everything I saw it do. During that time, I had weekly meetings with Palantir staff members where we planned out a project, connected my Foundry instance to a few interesting data sources, built a small ontology, and then put together a few pipelines and dashboards to analyze changes in my data over time. And beyond that, Palantir's employees were smart, patient, and treated me like a real customer, even though my project was obviously tiny in comparison to everything else they do. As I learned more about Foundry, it became obvious that I was just scratching the surface of its full capabilities. So I eventually stopped worrying about my project altogether and started testing every tool, reading every document, and asking every question I could think of before giving up my Foundry access about a year ago. So the first thing I want to say is a big thank you to everyone at Palantir who I had the privilege of working with last year. And a huge thank you to CodeStrap for connecting us in the first place.
Real quick here, I think this is really, really important before we go further here. This gentleman was introduced and used Palantir's Foundry product over a year ago, right? And I'm sure there hasn't been some monumental shift necessarily in the product, but obviously the onboarding process, I think, has changed a lot from what I have heard over the past year as well. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. Especially with AIP, like a lot has changed in that process from what I've heard.
What an absolute legend. The next thing I'm sure you want to know is why I haven't really covered Palantir since I got access to Foundry. After all, that was the whole point of me using it. Long story short, Foundry costs money, which means that Palantir was technically compensating me by giving me access. I also had to sign non-disclosure agreements because my instance of Foundry and my meetings both included features that were still being worked on. So that really limited what I could record. Not to mention that showing anything in a YouTube video would mean me technically making money with Foundry, which brought up even more issues. In the end, I got some pretty clear guidance on what I couldn't say, show, or do with my Foundry access, according to the FTC and SEC regulations. That guidance is what kept me quiet about Palantir this whole time. Now that it's been a full year since I gave up my Foundry access and got offboarded from Palantir, I can talk about everything that's changed. And boy, has the world changed. New industries, new competitors, and of course, a new era of AI. And Palantir has changed a bit as well. New partnerships, new platforms, and new quarterly reports. So let's talk about all of these changes and what they could mean for Palantir in 2024.
In terms of Palantir's business model, in terms of the financial statements, I should really say, what Palantir was putting up for financial statements back when this gentleman was using the product well over a year ago, man, has things changed a lot there, right? That was a whole different Palantir on the financial statement front than nowadays, certainly.
Things first, it's never been a more important time to understand the science behind this stock.
You tell me, who is your daddy and what does he do?
If you've seen my previous Palantir videos, you have a huge leg up over other investors because you understand what this company does. And if you understand that, you know who actually competes with them. And they do have some serious competition, which I'll talk about in a little bit. If you don't know what Palantir does, here's the 60-second speedrun. Palantir's Gotham and Foundry platforms enable data science across an entire enterprise by giving everyone from executives and engineers to sales teams and human resources a consistent real-time view of their data. They do that by helping companies create digital twins, which are also called ontologies. At a high level, ontologies are networks of things and their relationships, and the bigger the enterprise, the harder it usually is to get this step right. For example, the US Army is a huge interconnected network of personnel, assets, locations, and objectives. Amazon is a network of warehouses, vendors, products, and customers. Facebook is a network of people, organizations, and places that are connected by their relationships. Palantir's platforms help large enterprises build, maintain, and use these ontologies to track and analyze their resources and optimize their operations as things change.
If somebody asked me to explain Palantir in less than 10 seconds, explain Palantir in less than 10 seconds, I'd put it like this. Palantir helps you as a company make better decisions. Palantir helps you as a government agency make better decisions. Like if I just had to keep it under 10 seconds, that's as simple as that, right? And they do that obviously by using data and using that data in a way that is efficient and the best way that you can possibly understand the data and telling you ultimately what you should be doing even prior to certain situations happening.
In real time. One big thing that separates Palantir's platforms from their competition is their ability to maintain extremely high levels of accuracy over many different kinds of data processing while complying with many different levels of access, permissions, and classifications. While that may not sound particularly exciting, juggling accuracy, speed, and security is one of the toughest challenges for AI-based tools today. And it's especially important for the high-risk environments that Palantir's customers often find themselves operating in. Whether they're a branch of the US military, a big hospital complex, an international bank, or an airline. Both Gotham and Foundry can also connect directly to an asset and let users send commands directly from Palantir software, like rotating a wind turbine, rerouting a vehicle, or even tasking a military unit. That's actually an insane level of access and control to give to any third-party software, which shows just how much some of the biggest governments, militaries, and companies on the planet trust Palantir's platforms with their most sensitive data. And speaking of sensitive data, I recently found out that dozens of online data brokers are selling my personal data.
So the best news is in regards to like when it comes to obviously Palantir and let's say a company trusting them, right? It's phenomenal. As he was bringing up there, when the military trusts you, the U.S. military, who probably doesn't trust anybody, when they can trust you, that's huge. And so you as a large company, like you can't really go in there and feel distrust at all when you understand the agencies this company's working with. So I think that's one of the biggest things ultimately for the commercial market over the next 5-10 years is just that level of understanding of people being like, these guys work with the highest level of government folks out there, right? That's
Plan
phenomenal.
With my code SYMBOL20. Just go to joindeleteme.com/symbol20, which I'll also link to below. And a big thanks to Delete Me for supporting the channel and for keeping my family's data safe. All right, so the biggest enterprises on the planet trust Palantir's platform with their most sensitive data. And last year, Forrester Research ranked Palantir as the leading artificial intelligence and machine learning platform.
Yeah, so if we have leaders, Palantir's there, but here's where we might have, is this true? Okay, is this accurate? C3 AI is also noted as a leader there. That's a little scary because a lot of people don't really consider them very much of a leader. But anyways, and by the way, C3 AI's latest earnings, I thought they were really disappointing, really disappointing.
In a nutshell, companies can choose a large language model like OpenAI's GPT-4 or Anthropic's Claude 2, and AIP will supercharge it by letting it access different Palantir functions and algorithms, training it on the right parts of an ontology, automatically enforcing data and user permissions with the right guardrails, augmenting prompts to limit the model's hallucinations, and even teaching it to take pre-approved actions based on who's using it. AIP is seriously impressive, especially in
the thing I really like about this gentleman, obviously he really understands Palantir's product. I think there's a lot of people that write negative related things on Palantir or say negative related things because they know it will get attraction. They'll know it will get attention, right? But a lot of those folks don't really understand anything about what Palantir really does or their product or anything like that, or advantages. And this gentleman, in my opinion, he understands a lot about Palantir, and I appreciate that.
Google is still going viral for showing off how their AI models can recognize a duck.
I was just talking about a blue duck, and now you're holding one. It looks like blue ducks are more common than I thought.
Good job, Gemini. What's that? The conversation was faked and it didn't happen in real time? Huh. No wonder Alex Karp keeps making fun of Silicon Valley all the time.
If you're sitting on your perch in Silicon Valley and you're only creating value for yourself, monetizing your fellow Americans and others in the form of monetizing their data and providing no value to them, except for disrupting the businesses that people work at, you're going to find that your level of trust, it goes really down really far quickly. And I don't think this is something you can kind of IQ your way out of, which is, I think, essentially one of the problems in Silicon Valley. They just think that they're so smart that they can smart their way out of this. But it's just so obvious.
Look, no one is debating that Palantir makes some of the best AI-powered software platforms in the world. But being the best is not how companies dominate a market, which is a big problem for Palantir because that seems to be their entire market strategy.
During that earnings call, you said, we have no pricing strategy. We're going to create a lot of value. We're going to get hundreds of customers, and we will...
As I told you guys, the moment I heard Karp say that, I was like, ooh, Wall Street's not going to like that. They are not going to like that. You got to figure that stuff out as soon as possible.
As we go. Have you made any progress on pricing strategy since that point?
No. Why? Okay,
why so relaxed about it?
Because it's like one of these things. Like when you go to a bar, you know everyone wants to meet you. Do you have a pricing strategy when you go to the bar? No, you're like, oh, I'm cool. I know we have the best product in the market. I know customers will pay us fairly. I know that it's much more valuable than anyone will understand until they install it. And we will sort out. We are going to create a lot of value, and we're going to get some portion of that value. And customers are smart. They'll pay you some portion of the value. Why should just as an axiomatic thing, if you have a software product, you always want to get paid after you deliver value. If you've got a PowerPoint, something that doesn't work, something that's not valuable, you want to get paid before you create value. We know it's valuable. We know it's much more valuable than people understand. We know we're going to continue to augment that value, and we're going to get paid along the way.
The thing is, superior products almost always end up losing.
That is, okay, first off, superior products always losing. I don't know if I would necessarily say that, but I think that statement by Karp, I think that was as good of a statement as you could possibly make. And why do I view that as good of a statement as you can possibly make? That shows me the most ultra level of confidence in what Palantir really has, right? And that he's so confident in it. He's like, companies are going to pay us, and they'll pay up for that product. We'll figure all that out over the next year or so. But that is an ultra level of confidence. I will say that. And so when I heard that statement, I got a little more confident. Let's just say in Palantir overall.
To inferior products with better branding and distribution, better pricing, lower switching costs, or are just plain easier to use. That's because it's not the technology inside the product that matters. It's the product market fit. And if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe Steve Jobs.
You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try
No,
to...
whoa. Okay, hold your horses. So this is definitely some disagreement here, right? So Steve Jobs, and I've probably seen every single Steve Jobs clip 100 times over the years. Steve Jobs was really speaking about consumer products when you're trying to sell products to, hundreds of millions of users, right? Or dare I say billions of users. There's a whole different, strategy when you're trying to sell the masses versus trying to sell a very complicated product to very high level individuals at a company, let's say, for instance, or something like that, right? So there's a difference there. And so I don't want us to confuse, what Palantir does and the people they sell their product to versus an Apple who's trying to sell to everybody in the world. Apple wants every customer in the world to be their customer. Palantir wants 1,000 or 2,000 companies in the world being their customers. There's a huge monumental difference between, somebody like an Apple, the strategies of a Steve Jobs versus somebody like a Palantir that's much more niche. And it's not a problem to be niche, right? And there's a good saying in business, right? If you want to create a successful business and become rich, there's two ways you can do it. One, sell a cheaper product to the masses, right? Or the other is sell a high-ticket product to, let's call it, very wealthy individuals, right? And Palantir kind of takes that second approach. But they're, instead of selling to wealthy individuals, they're selling to wealthy corporations and wealthy governments. So before we go further here, what's my opinion on these other, big dog companies, the Microsofts, and maybe even the Googles, right, down the road, and the Amazons and those sorts of things as competitors to Palantir? I definitely think in some fashion they're competitors, right? I just think, those companies have a lot going on. I mean, a lot going on. And so to have a product as good as Palantir, I don't think that's too realistic when you have as many things going on as those companies do. I also think it can get companies to think more about their data and how to use that data efficiently, which could lead them to solutions that are top tier, right? Oh, maybe AI could use something like a Palantir that's even the next level up. And so, because that's what Palantir really brands it as. Microsoft, what they got going on, that might be okay, right? Palantir is really focused on not being okay, being phenomenal, being great, being the best. And so I just think if customers looking for the best, they're going to likely look at a Palantir. If they're looking for okay, then maybe Microsoft's fine for them in terms of some of the solutions Microsoft offers, or Amazon offers, or those sorts of companies, right? It just depends, right? I mean, you can look at, video conferencing, for instance, is a perfect example. Like, there's a lot of companies that offer that, including even Microsoft, right? And yet Zoom still built a massive business. Not everybody's just going to use this one company for this one thing. And obviously, video conferencing is a very, let's call it, easy kind of thing to replicate compared to something like what Palantir's doing, right? I'll put it like this, okay? Wedding rings. So you're going to get married. You're going to get engaged, right? Okay, you have different options out there, right? Listen, you could go to K Jewelers and get a diamond ring. You could go to Zales at the mall and get a diamond ring, or any of the other big mall-based retailers, right? You go to a little bit of a specialty store. You could go to Tiffany's. You could go to some insanely high-end jeweler. Let's just stop at Tiffany's, okay? Palantir's trying to be the Tiffany's. I guess that's the best way to put it, right? The customers that have the money, that want what they believe is the best, they're going to go to Palantir. The ones that can't afford a Palantir, or they don't really care to have the best, they're going to go to whatever the other options are out there. I'd put it like that, right? And does everybody shop at Tiffany's? No. A lot more people shop at the other little jewelry stores that sell you a diamond ring for $1,000 or $2,000 or something like that, right? Versus 10,000 or 5,000 or 20,000 or 50,000 or whatever, right? So Palantir, they don't need everybody to be their customer, but the customers they do want to have are the ones with a lot of money, right? The big dog companies. So that's the way I would kind of put it.
They're going to, the market over time, not in a quarter, will end up picking the best products. That's what we know.
All right, I won't rehash the whole competition thing, but let me ask you a few different questions. Whether you believe Bloomberg's estimates that the AI market will grow by over 40% per year for the next decade, or Alex Karp when he says it's an infinite market already, then why did Palantir's most recent earnings call only show 17% revenue growth year over year? And how come...
Yeah, so in all due respect in regards to that, that's because all these companies are really going to start making software-related revenues in 2024. Snowflake's been very consistent about that. This is the year of the hardware companies, which is really NVIDIA. This is the year of NVIDIA, right? The hardware, get the hardware right, and get everybody interested in these softwares. But in terms of the material numbers starting to come in, whether it be for a Palantir, whether it be for Microsoft, or any of these other companies that are competing in the something AI related, that money's going to start pouring in 2024. So just a little food for thought
Our
there.
retention rate is just 107%. Net dollar retention measures how much money recurring customers
Don't be surprised if
spend
that
with
goes
a
back up
company
in
year over
2024.
year. So Palantir's recurring
Don't be
customers
surprised.
spent just 7% more with them this year than last year. If it's lower because of headwinds in Europe, like their earnings report suggests, then why not show the US numbers or the government versus commercial numbers like they already do everywhere else?
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at like AWS has always been like the strongest growth, insane growth when it comes to their cloud business, right? And if you were even to look at their numbers over the past, I would say about year now at this point in time, or at least the last 3 quarters, insanely low growth for AWS, insanely low growth because people are really watching their budgets heavy. We do, from what it sounds like, companies are starting to, let's call it, open up the pocketbooks a little bit now at this point in time. Now they're starting to feel a little more comfortable. And that's going to bode very well for AWS, which is Amazon, which is a stock I obviously own, and Palantir, which is a stock I own as well. So I'm expecting much stronger growth rates for those companies in 2024.
If they really have no competition in the commercial sector, then how come more than half of their revenue still comes from government customers? Hopefully,
to be fair, I mean, the government business is just such a beast. I mean, the government business was, commercial. When did Palantir even really start to focus on commercial? It's really just in the past few years that they really started to focus on commercial. Prior to that, like 98% of their attention was all on government. It's really been the past few years when they've really started, I would say the past 5 years specifically, they really started to focus on commercial. And believe me, commercials that end up passing up government and by a substantial margin. And the way that business has grown over the past 5 years, it's pretty phenomenal.
Starting to see the disconnect between their rhetoric and reality here. I know this video is a little long, but I want to be thorough since these are the things stopping Palantir from growing faster, and I haven't really been able to talk about them since I got access to Foundry. So if you feel I've earned it, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel.
I got
that
you,
really
man.
Helps me out, and it lets me know to put out more commentary like this.
I got your thumbs
Thanks.
up.
And with that out of the way, there's really only one question left to answer. Is Palantir actually doomed in 2024? No, of course not. But not being doomed isn't the same thing as reaching your full potential. And if there's one thing that every Palantir shareholder agrees on, it's that this company has the potential to be massive. And since I don't like complaining without offering solutions, here's something I think Palantir could do to realize more of that potential. I would build a huge fictional data set that they can use for product demos, user training, and marketing. I'm talking like recreating the entire empire from Star Wars, complete with chains of command, lists of ship, troop, and droid movements and communications across different cities and planets, dynamic logistics and supply routes, mission objectives, and priority targets for those pesky Jedi and good-for-nothing rebels. Then Palantir can show off examples of how to set up new data sources, build out the Empire's entire ontology, and then interact with it through AIP and other analysis tools. Then I would use this giant data set to build an entire marketing campaign that shows off all of Palantir's best tools and algorithms in detail, and show how they all fit together using examples that most people in their target audience can actually understand, not just developers and computer scientists. After that, I would start taking the most popular tools and algorithms from each platform and turning them into standalone services that can be sold separately, and build a pricing strategy around them to capture more small and medium-sized businesses. It doesn't have to be every single feature, but I can already think of a few that make sense from my time with Foundry. This same data set can also be used for user training and certification, and even directly comparing Foundry to other products.
That's fair. Palantir doesn't really seem to focus on, especially small business yet. Even mid-sized businesses kind of like, they're really focused on large companies still, which is, I'm sure that could change over the next 3, 5, 7 years. But for right now, that's really their focus, right? The one monumental, I think, thing this gentleman didn't speak about in regards to this video is the sales process. And Palantir being able to show a customer exactly how Palantir can help them, and doing that within a matter of days now. even 48 hours, Alex Karp has stated, right? Versus in the past, it really took you months to kind of really understand how Palantir, and I think that's going to be something that helps Palantir's growth rates immensely in 2024 and obviously future years, getting that sales cycle down from somebody having to take so long to make a decision around the product to maybe something that is much quicker. And I think that's really important as well, right? And also, if you don't feel, there's a lot of companies that are going to compete in these spaces and are going to be successful. I own several of them, right? Meta is going to be a player in AI. I own Meta. It's my biggest position in the public count. Amazon's going to be a big player. That's my third biggest position in the public count. Palantir is going to be a big player in my opinion. I own, quite a bit of Palantir stock. So, and I've even considered Microsoft stock recently. I've even considered NVIDIA stock recently. Like seriously considered these stocks. So you can play in several of these stocks and benefit as many of these companies benefit over the next 5-10 years or whatever. Okay, appreciate y'all joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for being subscribed to the channel, folks. Appreciate each and every one of you. Also, pin comment down there if you want to check out that new video I recorded for you guys, about a 45-minute beast, how I plan to invest this year with all the craziness that is expected for 2024. Much love and have a great day.